Welcome everyone to today's SCORE and Spectrum webinar. It's a panel discussion on successful business owners sharing how to restart your business post-COVID. And our moderator today is going to be Sue Shapiro. For the webinar, you are in listen-only mode, meaning that your audio is on mute. We do recommend that you maximize your Zoom window for an optimal experience. And we will have opportunity for Q&A. So submit your questions at any time via the Q&A feature at the bottom of your Zoom window, and we'll just hold on to your questions until we start taking questions from attendees. We are recording the webinar, and that will be sent to you on Monday. So keep an eye out in your email for that. With that, let me turn things over to Tim Cantato to tell you a little bit about SCORE.
Thank you, Kendra. Good day, everyone, and welcome to the 5th webinar for Spectrum's Business Insights, Ideas to Empower Today's Business Owners. This one is entitled A Panel Discussion on Successful Business Owners Sharing How to Restart Your Business Post-COVID. My name is Tim Cantato, and while I'm not one of your webinar presenters today, I have been a certified SCORE mentor for the last 5.5 years. For those of you not familiar with SCORE, I'd like to take this opportunity to tell you a little bit about the SCORE Association. Sometimes known as the Advisors to America's Small Business, SCORE is a nonprofit association comprised of over 10,000 volunteer business counselors in over 325 chapters throughout the US and its territories. In existence for 55 years, SCORE members are trained to serve as counselors and mentors to aspiring entrepreneurs and business owners. SCORE chapters offer mentoring services, workshops, and webinars similar to the one that you're about to see. Advisory board services for more established businesses, business owner roundtables, which serve as peer networking groups for entrepreneurs, and information resources like templates and instruction booklets through their websites. SCORE mentors are experienced business executives with specialties and expertise in a variety of disciplines like marketing, finance, accounting, and many other fields. They are available to help businesses in all stages of a business's development, whether it be pre-startup, startup, or even ongoing concerns. And as such, SCORE mentors are trained and encouraged to develop ongoing relationships with their clients, meaning more than one-time meetings, but hopefully series of follow-up sessions to help promote success. So you may be asking yourself, the one thing that you certainly want to do is look at the webinars that we have right now. This one, that we have coming up at the end of the month is Successful Pricing, which I will be leading. And I hope that you can visit and register for that one as well. When you go to this website, you also have the opportunity to look at any of the previous webinars that were there in turn. And I hope you take the opportunity to watch them. So you may be asking yourself, how do I avail myself of the free help offered by SCORE? Well, first, you can request a mentor by going to www.score.org and clicking Find a Mentor. Click that, Kendra. Enter your zip code, fill out a mentor request form, and a mentor will reach out to you to schedule a session. Really, it's as easy as 1, 2, 3. The New York City chapter of SCORE is pleased to partner with Spectrum Business to bring you this series of training webinars. And like I said, when you go to the website, you'll be able to access the previous other webinars for free so that you can view them at your convenience and leisure. We'd like to thank Spectrum Business for underwriting this series of webinars. And in that vein, Jennifer Ingram, the Vice President of Marketing, Small and Medium Business, who normally attends these webinars, was unfortunately not able to come to this, but she sent us a message that Kendra will read for you. Kendra?
Yes, thank you so much, Tim. So Spectrum Business provides internet, voice, TV, and mobile solutions to small businesses across 41 states. And Jennifer asked me to share with you the following. Spectrum Business is pleased to be sponsoring today's small business workshop and pleased to be partnering with SCORE. Spectrum Business and SCORE share the same goal. We want to help small businesses thrive. And we understand that small businesses are the backbone of the country's economy and play a critical role in our communities. Small businesses are in many ways the glue that holds a community together. That's why Spectrum Business is sponsoring this workshop series, which is brought to you by SCORE. And it's important to Spectrum Business to help small businesses get the support they need to start and grow. Thank you for attending today's session. On Jennifer's behalf and on behalf of the entire team at Spectrum, enjoy today's webinar. And with that, I'm going to ask our moderator today, Sue Shapiro, to introduce herself.
Hi there, everybody. My name is Sue Shapiro, and I'm very proud to be a SCORE mentor. I'm thrilled to welcome our panel today, who have really shown the best of what a small business can do. And please, any of you who are listening, who are thinking, oh, gosh, I'd love a sounding board, I'd love some help, don't hesitate to contact us. Our services are always free. In any case, it was a tough year, 2020. We lost family, we lost friends, we lost businesses, a very tough year. But interestingly enough, even though it was tough, there were some businesses that ended up not only surviving, but thriving. And we have 4 good examples of that today. People just like you who went through a lot of challenges and overcame them. So we've got Dominique from Crimson Coaching, Jill from Urban Asanas, Stacy from Inside Out Tours and Events, and Misty from Uncle Jerry's Pretzels. And I'm going to ask each of them to share what they did during these tough times to really thrive. So let's tell a little bit about who you are first. Tell us a little bit about yourself. And on my screen, Misty, you're right on top, so go first. Who are you? What your background, your work experience?
Sure.
Go ahead.
So my name is Misty. I am a co-owner of Uncle Jerry's Pretzels. My father is my business partner, and he started the business about 35 years ago. I joined him 13 years ago after working in community and workforce development. When I was doing this work for nonprofits in New York City and Washington, D.C., I worked with immigrants, men living in a homeless shelter who had had contact with the criminal justice system and other underserved communities. And I helped them with job readiness skills and to match them with employers. I have a bachelor's in international affairs and a master's in U.S. foreign policy from George Washington University.
That's great. Thanks, Misty. So we know a little bit about you. You get to your business shortly. Stacy. You mute, Stacy. Unmute yourself.
Sorry about that. I am Stacy Toussaint. I am a native Brooklynite, originally from East Flatbush, and I am the president and owner of Inside Out Tours and Events. In terms of my background, I actually have a varied background. I've worked in television. I practiced law for over 10 years doing commercial litigation and securities before starting what was my passion, which is Inside Out Tours and Events, a company that focuses on hidden history, as well as diversity and inclusion, as well as team building experiences around the city. In terms of my education, I was educated right here in New York, Columbia College and Columbia Law School.
Thank you, Stacy. Next, Jill.
Can you hear me?
And now we can.
Awesome. So my name is Jill Hubbard Salk. I am the owner of Urban Asanas Yoga Studio in Crown Heights. I am from Canton, Ohio. I'm a Midwest belle. I've been in New York for about 30 years, but before I got to New York, I went to Kent State in Ohio. Then I transferred to Jackson State and HBCU in Mississippi. And then I left Mississippi and I was like, I'm done with all of this. And I landed in Paris. And I landed in Paris for about 2 years, where I was trying to figure the world out. And I modeled, and then I left there. And then I came back to Mississippi. Then I went to Texas and went to grad school. And then I just figured out that, what the heck am I doing with my life? And then my brother was here as a dancer with Bill T. Jones and Arnie Zane. And he said, come and stay with me. Let's figure it out. So I came to New York City with this big girl's dream from the Midwest, and I started acting. And it was semi-successful. I got a write-up in the Times for a little small piece at PS 122 in the East Village. And then my brother, being a dancer, he was like, come on, let's go take a yoga class. And for the first time ever, I stepped on the yoga mat and caught my breath and caught my heart, and I found home. And that's kind of where my whole world of yoga started. And that's what I got to Urban Asana 30 something years later. And that's just my story.
Good story. Thank you, Jill. Dominique.
Hi, my name's Dominique Paterano, and I'm the founder and president of Crimson Coaching, which, as you can see over here, does academic tutoring, test prep, and college consulting. I have a BA from Harvard University, which is where the Crimson name comes from. But when I graduated, I had no idea what I wanted to do with my life. I was the first person in my family to attend college away from home. And I didn't have a lot of sort of white collar models in my family. And my mom had said to me, you know, you've always been a tutor. Why don't you give teaching a try? So I did that, and I worked in the classroom for 10 years. But after I got my PhD and did a bunch of teaching, I kind of wanted another challenge. And so that's where Crimson Coaching was born in 2014. And it allows me to kind of work one-on-one with families and kids to meet their needs. And I just love it. I've never looked back.
Great. Thank you, guys. I think that gives us a good idea of what got you to opening your own business or joining a business. So let's go from there. And could you describe your business, not in terms of pandemic, but describe when did you start it, and basically what does it do? So let's start this time with Jill.
Okay, I'm unmuted. Well, my business, Urban Asanas, I'm the only Black-owned yoga studio in Crown Heights. So I started this whole yoga journey a little bit more than 30 years ago. So it completely changed my life, and it kind of squashed the whole acting thing down when I got certified. So I've been teaching for about over 20 years. So with Urban Asanas, and everything wasn't as quote unquote gentrified as it is now. So about 30 years ago, yoga was very whitewashed, you know what I mean? And every time I would go to a studio, I was the only person of color. And then as I started to kind of get more into the spirit of yoga, I started hearing all of these stories, you know, how it was not diverse and how people of color didn't feel safe, didn't feel good. And so I sat on it and I meditated on it. And I was like, I need to create a safe space. I need to create a space that everybody can come in and they're never judged. So with that, I created Urban Asanas 10 years ago, which is by about a block away from my space, from my house. And I have a diverse yoga studio and everyone comes in. I never turn anyone away at the door. It's not about money. It's about your heart and how you're living and what you're doing with your life. And that's basically how the studio came to be. And that's what it is. So let me just interject there. I do have a wellness studio next to my yoga studio as well. And I just opened that about 2 years ago.
Jill, what is asanas for those who are not familiar with the term?
Sorry to talk over you. Asana means posture in Sanskrit, urban postures.
Good. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Again, tell us about your business, Stacey, and when did you start it, and what does it do, or what did it do pre-pandemic?
Yes, so Inside Out Tours, we are a tour operator and also a destination management company. So before COVID, we were handling tens of thousands of customers from around the world, our primary markets being Europe, Australia, Latin America. We got some people from Asia and also a lot of people from the domestic market. What makes us distinguished is the fact that we are involved with inclusive storytelling about New York. So that's actually one of my passions. Having grown up in the New York City public school system, and really not learning the history of many people other than sort of these European American people who were, that were said to have shaped this country. It was really important for me to tell the story of everyone. And so when you're coming to New York, we're showing you iconic New York, but we're telling it in an inclusive way to include the stories of women, of people who are gay, of people of color. So you can understand the role everybody served in building New York. And in addition to that, we do team building events as well.
Can you explain what a destination management company is?
Sure. So in addition to being able to do these specialized tours that we do, we can also book attractions, we can book hotels, we can book your transportation. So we're a one-stop shop that specializes in New York experiences.
Great, thanks. Okay, Dominique, tell us when you started the business.
Sure. So Crimson Coaching started in 2014, but my own tutoring business, so to speak, started in 1985 when I was just 13 years old and worked for the first time with a 9-year-old. So I've been tutoring a long time, and it started at, I had worked at some really good high schools, Horace Mann School, Scarsdale High School in New York and the suburbs, and really people kind of just were, my first clients were just sort of families who knew me from having been a teacher at these places. So I started out doing a lot of history tutoring because I was a history teacher. But part of the reason I started Crimson Coaching is because, I was a dork as a kid, and I love all different kinds of teaching. And so I was able to slowly branch out into French and Spanish, and slowly into SAT and college consulting, and really help one kid. Sometimes started with them, say in 10th grade, and as their needs grew in 11th and 12th, I was able to kind of help them by building up a relationship with the family. And then I found that one family, if they were happy with me, which luckily most of them have been, would refer me to the next and to the next. And so prior to the pandemic, most of my business kind of development was really word of mouth. Happy families would pass my names on to others. Because especially when you're dealing with having an adult come into your home, which again was my business model pre-pandemic, you want somebody who's trustworthy, as well as somebody who is going to take care of your child in terms of both intellectually and emotionally as well.
That's really, wonderful to hear, because so many kids need tutoring, and it's nice to know that somebody's out there who cares. Misty, tell us about when your father started and then when you joined. Go ahead, tell us about the beginning of the company.
Sure. So as I mentioned, my dad started the company in 1989, and Uncle Jerry's are a handmade sourdough Pennsylvania Dutch pretzel. So it's a very niche product. My dad started by going door to door to stores in Philadelphia and just making deliveries several times a week. We are now distributed nationally, and we are sold in grocery stores of all sizes like Whole Foods, as well as small specialty shops with a single location, and directly through our website. We work with some of the largest distributors in the country at this point, so very excited for that. And I started with him, like I said, 13 years ago. I was working in community development. I was transitioning to New York. And while I was looking for work in that field, I saw an opportunity to take my dad's business online. Up until that point, he hadn't had a website. And so I thought, okay, let me just see what I can do. So I put together the website, started doing online sales, and it just grew and grew. And with that, the distribution of the product grew, so that we're now distributed straight to the West Coast. So I kind of work on the online piece of the business, and that's how I started. And then eventually I was working in community development full time, and I was doing the pretzels in the evenings and weekends. And eventually I was able to support myself full time with it. So.
All right, so it's a good transition story to hear about. Okay, now comes the elephant in the room called COVID-19. And everybody here, I think, had a successful business when it happened. And all of a sudden, in March of 2020, literally the world shut down, including the things that you do for your business. So before that, what goals did you have? You know, every year we all make New Year's resolutions, but businesses are no different. They want to grow, and tell us what plans you had to grow the business for 2020 in January, not March, but in January. What plans did you have? How did you want to expand? How did you want to increase your income? What did you plan to do? So let's start with Dominique.
So up until 2020, I am definitely a big believer in setting goals on the new year. I know it's kind of either not so much resolutions, but I do write down on or around January 1st, sort of what I would like to see happen, not just for my business, but personally and in relationships and things for that. But I definitely wanted to expand my sort of gross receipts at least 20% in 2020. And one way that I did hope to do this was by expanding the international part of my business. I'm lucky in that I've had, even pre-pandemic, was a small part of my business was in Brussels, because I had a Harvard classmate who lives in Brussels, and she hired me to help her twins apply to college. And I found I liked working with international kids, and it expanded the time during which I could make money, because as a tutor, you generally make your money between 4 p.m. and 8 p.m. But now I could make money actually in the morning. So that was awesome for me. So I went into 2020 saying I want to expand that part of my business.
I love that, using time that you would not normally have it, because US kids would be in school during the 4 day and could only be tutored after school.
Exactly.
But with the time difference to Europe, great opportunity. Never occurred to me. Great idea. Stacy.
Yeah, so 2020, we had just experienced one of our best years ever. The company was growing at about 23% growth each year, and I was in the midst of planning to expand to other cities. Yeah, and then COVID happened.
Okay,
so you can imagine that. But yeah, so it was a good time in terms of projecting about what the future growth would look like, opening up to new markets, opening up to new cities.
So your major goal for 2020 was to expand to outside of New York City. What other cities were you looking at?
Well, DC, Philadelphia, those were the two first cities I was looking at, just because so much of the populations are very similar in terms of what some of their educational needs are. And also the history, there's so much overlap. So it just made sense to sort of try to become the regional specialist. And especially because we are the only citywide Black-owned destination management company. So we, as part of our mission, we were targeting populations that were traditionally marginalized as well as underrepresented in tourism, because tourism is not, as you know, Sue, diverse at all. So just like Joe was saying with yoga, it's the same in tourism on an ownership level. So our plan was to go to other cities and try to have these, you know, diversity and inclusion type experiences in those cities as well.
And I believe, Stacy, you also had a huge foreign market.
Oh yeah, so definitely, because there's so many topics that are really international in terms of their interest. And so like Australia was very interested in American history. as it related to diversity and inclusion, and also hidden history, which is our other specialty. The UK market, we were multilingual, so we had a lot of Latin American clients. So I was going to expand to other cities and domestically, but internationally, also looking at expanding to other countries that have similar overlaps in terms of areas of historical interest.
So you were at that point in 2020, what proportion of your business came from overseas?
At least 50%.
50%.
Yes,
50% of your people flew into New York and took your tours.
exactly.
Okay, so we kind of know what's coming after
Then
that.
the hammer
Miss,
fell.
tell us about, what plans you had for what were your New Year's resolution goals for Jerry's Pretzels?
World pretzel domination, right? I had so
Love it.
many plans.
Yes.
Like Stacey just mentioned, I had experienced continuous growth at about 25 to 30% since I've been in the business with my father. So we expected that. We had some very specific goals. We talked about opening a retail storefront in Philadelphia, which is where we're strongest. I really wanted to focus on increasing our corporate gift sales. A lot of financial, legal, other types of corporate firms will send gift baskets at the holidays to their clients. So I was really looking to expand that part of the business. I wanted to launch a new variety. I wanted to start using other carriers for shipping. And of course, I really wanted to focus on social media and making the branding cohesive across everything and really coming up with a strong strategy. And then, March happened, so.
What proportion of your business was corporate gifts? Roughly.
I would say during the holiday sales, it probably was up to 20 to 30%. It's a major portion. If you're in the food business, I think or most industries, that the holidays are when you can really make your most money.
And therefore you planned on seeing what you could do to increase corporations to give gifts to other corporations as well as employees and
Correct.
And that was the goal. And it's a normal, understandable in regular days goal. Understandable. Okay. Jill, tell us of what New Year's resolutions you made to expand your business.
Well, just for clarity purposes, I don't do resolutions.
All right.
It's just a failure. So I can wrap my head around goals.
Okay.
So I was just opening the wellness studio. And so with the wellness studio, it's 3 rooms and people practitioners come and rent rooms. So I had acupuncture, I have an esthetician, it's massage. And so I was just thinking of okay, I have the yoga studio, I have the wellness studio. Underneath me is a restaurant, upstairs are 2 apartments. And so I'm okay, I'm going to take over this building. I'm going to take this building and I'm going to expand all this sweetness and goodness into this whole building. And I sat down and I talked to my assistant and I'm okay, girl, this is the master plan. This is what we're going to do. And then it was also my first sold out retreat in Jamaica. We had 20 people. We were supposed to leave 2 weeks before March.
Oh.
And it was a non-refundable trip. So basically, March happened, COVID happened. It just kind of took everything. So I have to say the building, I released that out to the universe. However, I did finally make the retreat just at the beginning of this year, but it was very it was a challenging thing because we did do a retreat in the middle, not in the middle, but kind of at the end of COVID. I was in Jamaica in January, and a lot of people were not, a lot of people were disenchanted. So, I mean, many lessons learned, a slice of humble pie, but lessons learned.
All right, so like Misty wanted world domination for pretzels, you wanted world domination for yoga in Brooklyn.
Yes, ma'am.
As wellness, as well as taking over part of Stacy's travel industry, a little bit of everything you're probably going to teach as Dominique is doing. We understand that. Okay, now comes March of 2020. So as a result of the lockdown, the pandemic, your business model changed a lot. So tell us what steps that you took to adapt to a very changing business environment, something that none of us anticipated, none of us ever dreamed of. It was beyond our comprehension. I remember saying to somebody, it's going to last a couple of weeks and then everything's fine. Boy, was I wrong. In any case, tell us what you did to adapt to something, a once in a lifetime event in our industry. Dominique.
Sure. So, like lots of small business owners, I kind of saw nothing happening in March, April, May, and June. And this wasn't just a result of the pandemic. It happened to coincide with the for me, it was sort of a perfect storm because the SAT last year, the biggest one that most juniors take, happened on, well, was supposed to happen on March 14th, and it never did, at least in New York. And so lots of kids who were naturally going to kind of end their couple of months training with me, they probably would have ended anyway, although they might have gone on for some more coaching for the May SAT. But once the March one got canceled and the May one got canceled, parents were understandably reluctant to plop down a lot of money for SAT coaching when they didn't know that that would happen. So I kind of took the time to do two things. I invested sort of in my skills with social media and blogging. Some of it I had already been doing. I blogged intermittently before. I just blogged a lot more after. And with my social media, I really took a look and said, I had always found social media really overwhelming for me. And I actually just narrowed it down and said, where is my client base? My client base, which are women between the ages of 35 and 60, are generally on Facebook. And I just doubled down on Facebook. And so I had always done library talks in person, and I used to live stream on Facebook Live my talks. And now I began to try to use Facebook Live for like Dr. P's office hours on Friday. Come on and ask me any question that you want to ask me, things like that. And then finally, I sort of reaffirmed my relationships with existing organizations that I already partnered with, like public libraries. And I said, look, I was supposed to do an in-person talk on April 20th. Would you like me to do a Zoom webinar instead? And at that point, not many people were yet doing that early in the pandemic. And I think that really helped me because it kind of got me out in front of audiences without much of a lapse, and people in these communities were used to seeing me and they still saw me. Granted, it was now through a computer screen. And then I did start somewhat to also do some of that connecting with new international organizations that I had that I had set out to do in January of 2020. But as we'll hear a little bit later, I wound up getting so busy in the end part of the year that kind of quickly fell off the radar. So those are the things that I did in sort of the immediate post-pandemic lockdown.
And Dominique, what were the subjects of your blog, since you weren't talking in terms of studying for an exam?
I wasn't. So I really used a lot of keywords, and, you know, I learned a little bit about SEO, the kind of search engine optimization that would bring my website to, like, if somebody typed in online SAT coach, I could come up. And not that I blogged just for that. I was always trying to give my readers interesting tips, but I did definitely do that with in the back of my mind, having the website function as an advertisement, so to speak, on Google.
One of the things that I learned in the past year is helping is the new selling.
It absolutely is. And I think so many people, I have gotten many clients who have come to my webinars through public libraries, which they attended 2, 3, 4 times for free. But what also, I think trusting is the new selling, right? They needed to trust me as an expert. They needed to like me as somebody who they could interact with on a daily basis. And many people have told me, yeah, I mean, you seemed like a real person, right? And it's my fees are not cheap. And I don't blame people for wanting to know that they will be able to actually enjoy dealing with me after they clunk down that chunk of money.
Great. Jill, tell us what what happened to your studio come March in the lockdown, and what did you do, or what did you try to do to make a living under the circumstances?
Well, I completely shut down and I had to release 12 employees, teachers and practitioners. And the first day I did it, I remember I was still trying to wrap my head around, how could I get to Jamaica for the retreat? And I was still just in my mind. And then reality hit and I came home and I cried my eyes out and felt like, woe was me. And then I sat there and I'm like, what can I do? So one thing it's funny, divine order of what the universe gives you. I always had this fear to teach yoga in front of a camera. Like, I'm like, you can just get me, come live. That's the best we got. And then next thing you know, it's this thing called Zoom. And so I started teaching classes from the studio. However, it was me and my assistant, and I have chronic Lyme disease. So I have some mobility issues sometimes. And so she's a young lady. So she would do the class as I would teach. And the benefits of it is that people who had moved out of the city or moved out of the tri-state area, now they had accessibility to me. So something that was kind of like a pain in the neck kind of turned out to be a bit positive. So I just had to kind of figure out the angles, figure out the mics. And so that is basically what I've been doing since I've been closed. You know what I mean? And it's been such a blessing in disguise. And it's gotten me, I always say you have to get uncomfortable to get comfortable. So now I've gotten that muscle. And so now I kind of like Zoom, excuse me for saying that. And then I have also too, even outside of that, I have some private clients who completely kind of took me right over the edge to help me just kind of balance out everything. So that was my saving grace.
So had to be tough closing the studio almost overnight, and the wellness, and literally all the people who used to come in no longer came in, and you had a rent situation. So life had to be very difficult.
It was. However, I have to say, and as I'm presenting myself, I've always been optimistic. I mean, it's like, is your glass half full or is your glass half empty? However, for me, whether it's half full or whether it's half empty, I have a damn glass. I have a glass. So, I mean, that's always been, I mean, I always knew COVID wasn't going to take me down. I was going to survive this no matter what, by any means necessary.
That's good to hear. We want to hear more. Misty, tell us about you. What happened to you come
Sure.
pandemic?
So I'm sure you all remember how people were flooding into stores and buying toilet paper. Essentially, the same thing happened in grocery stores with food items. So in March, we experienced a significant bump in orders from our distributors. And we also saw a lot of customers go to our website. So we saw an immediate increase in website sales. Unfortunately, at that time, my dad's delivery business in Center City, Philadelphia collapsed. He serviced a lot of delis with a big lunchtime crowd. And since no one was going into the offices, they were closed. They weren't even in business anymore. So they shut down, and my dad kind of lost a significant part of his business. I also found that the psychology of doing business, that's the best way I can explain it, it really changed. I think people were really stressed out. Everyone had higher anxieties. People had less patience. They were worried about, getting their product. We were very worried about strains on the supply chain. And so there were all those types of business logistics at play, as well as how do we allow for freight pickups from our facility without allowing people into the facility and spreading, just minimizing risk. So we had to put in barriers, safety protocol for pickups and things like that. So those are the initial things that happened with in March when the pandemic started. So a few things that we had to do. We experienced a lot of price increases from our suppliers, and we absorbed those to the extent that we could, both to businesses that we work with as well as to customers on our website. We did end up having to discontinue one item because it just became too expensive to produce, and you can't really sell one item at a significantly different price. It wasn't going to work. So I also really started to focus on projects that I had been thinking about, like social media, that dealt with technology. I thought this is a good time. There's not a lot of face-to-face that can be done. Everything's online. So let me get back to this kind of back-end work, like Dominique was talking about, focusing on the social media, learning about SEO, and really paying attention to that. The cost of shipping skyrocketed. So unfortunately, we had to adjust the costs on our site. And back to the way people were reacting, my customer interactions really changed. And because of that, the way I did customer service had to change. So I picked up the phone a lot more and I just called people instead of the back and forth of email. So if a customer seemed very upset because they didn't get their pretzels the day that they thought, I would pick up the phone and talk to them. And I think that really overcame a lot of those pandemic related anxieties that weren't really about pretzels, but were really about what was happening in the world. And that also really helps to build loyalty. Now people know me, they know that it's me and my dad running the business, and they like that. So it not only eased immediate frustrations, but it developed some loyal customers.
I like your advice. So often we kind of hide behind emails and text messages when a simple phone call can make all the difference. And I know that it's a lot of people don't use their phones as phones. We use them as mobile computers. We use them as text machines, but we don't use them as phones. And yet, how nice to talk to people. Must have cost you a lot to put in the safety measures in the factory.
Yeah, it caused a lot of confusion because, truckers with these 18-wheelers are used to just pulling up to the docks, taking their pallets, and now they had to stop right off the road, make a phone call to be let in. So it definitely caused a slight problem and a little bit of backup. Also, my dad was still making deliveries, so we had to make sure that him and his driver assistant was safe. So we put a lot of protocols in place. We put cleaning supplies into the truck and made sure that everything was available when he was in the city.
It certainly was a scary time. Some things I think that you did appeared to work. Tell us what worked and what didn't work, because business is a trial and error, even in regular times, but even more so in COVID times. So let's start with Stacy. What worked? What didn't work?
So what we ended up doing was pivoting into virtual experiences, as well as also beginning to ship out goods. So what do I mean? Our diversity and inclusion experiences, we developed a series of 360-degree tours that would range from a bunch of topics, and we started to target corporations with those tours, because of course the corporations.
I apologize, Stacy. I never got to you on the last question.
It's
So
okay.
we'll get to what worked and what didn't in a minute. So,
Okay.
so go back to what did you do as a result? Obviously, you're no longer a receptive tour operator, putting people in buses and driving them all around New York because nobody's coming.
Well, actually, we always had two sides to the business. We had what we called FIT, which was individuals and small groups, and then we had large groups, people. So as soon as the governor said that people were allowed in the streets because an area was a yellow zone, we started to run our FIT tours. And there's one tour, the Slavery and Underground Railroad tour. It was so popular that even during the pandemic, people were coming to that tour. So what we had to do was provide them, like we had app technology so you could be distanced. Of course, everybody had to wear a mask, but we kept running those tours. The other thing that we did was I cut people's hours. I didn't let them go, which was a really hard decision because I saw my losses accumulating. But my idea was that if I can keep them, they'll help me transition into this new world. And I did. And so what ended up happening was they ended up, my remaining staff ended up helping me create a whole other side to the company, which I'm now going to spin off into its own entity. So we're going to spin off inside our virtual experiences into its own company, because there's so much of a demand for it. And this isn't going away because corporations are hybrid now, really, many of them are. So we ended up creating all these virtual experiences and then expanding into classes, including mixology and cooking classes, where we would ship kits nationally to people and then feature local talent, local mixologists, and local chefs. So this ended up being something that saved the company, because you're right, so many people were gone. They were just gone. I remember, you guys remember walking through the empty streets of New York. And so something had to be done. And so when I just had to go through this process. But I have to say one thing, nothing like crisis to tell you who your real friends are. I saw my clients for who they were. I had some clients that came to me and said, Stacy, we know we owe you tens of thousands of dollars, but you know what? We're going to work out that payment plan with you, right? We'll figure it out together. And I had other clients that absolutely disappeared and gaslit me the entire time. But the thing is, I also learned about myself. Who do I want to be? And I was like, after that period was over, and now the city's opening up again, those same clients, well, actually, it was like really one big client that did it. I was like, I'm not going to do business with you anymore. I don't care how much money you used to bring me, because I know as a business owner, I don't want to deal with people who don't have integrity. And I don't care if that's an individual or if it's a corporation. And so that was also a process for me to really know who were the people that I wanted to have second incarnation of my business, wanted to join on that road. So, I mean, it was a real, this time has been an eye opener. And that, I think, in a way, with all the disaster, has been a blessing, because people showed you who they really were. And so I'm doubling down on the relationships with the people who have integrity, and I can continue to work with. And I am not dealing with people who didn't. So, I think sometimes, especially when you're a small business owner, people think they can do whatever they want. Maybe she won't survive. Who cares? But at the end of the day, I know I went into business to do well, but also to be happy. And I got to see who was who during this whole entire time. And I'm not going to forget that lesson. So that was one thing that also happened.
It's a very good point. You know who your supporters are and who is not. Describe, if you would, we all know what a walking tour is. We all know what a bus tour is. What's a virtual tour? How do you do a
So what's wonderful, so we have this 360-degree technology with embedded images, and we tell the story of New York using this technology. So that's for our tours that are history-based, whether they're hidden history or diversity and inclusion. And then for our classes, we just use, just normal Zoom. But what we'll do is we have customized boxes that we'll send to the corporations so that they can have this as a team building experience with their employees.
Great. Okay, now go back to my question that I started with before, and go ahead, Jill. What worked and what didn't?
So what worked and what didn't work? What didn't work? Well, what didn't work was sitting in my house being woe was me. That surely did not work. And so what worked was, and another thing, I had to, in order to teach, I had to get all of this microphone equipment, and upgrade my camera, and just a whole wiring and film stuff that I had to get. And at that particular time, I did not have the money. And so another yoga studio in the city, and I'm going to say their name because out of respect, kind of like what Stacy said, who's cutting for you and who's not cutting for you. This yoga studio did a fundraiser for my studio. And it was right in the time at the beginning of the whole George Floyd marching and all of this. And they did a fundraiser, and it gave me an opportunity to go get all of this equipment to start Zooming my class. So I didn't do a lot of things that didn't work because it was a fitness studio. It was considered a gym. So my hands were basically tied. So I didn't, you know what I mean? So I didn't say, well, I had to do this. Basically, I had to get off my bum, lick my wounds, figure out how to make this sound system work and this audio and visual work, and start Zooming classes. And that's basically what happened for me.
You had said you had a fear, a concern about teaching in front of a camera.
Yeah.
So how much practice, what did you have to do to overcome that fear?
Oh my, you know what? It's a muscle. If you don't use it, you're going to lose it. So, I mean, I just had to take it for the team. I just had to go out there and throw myself out there. And I have to go with Stacy. I have such an amazing community where I am. Like it's beyond anything. And if I fall, they're going to be there. So whether I felt that I looked pretty stupid doing the Zoom and just all over the place, they were like, Jill, it's working. They were affirming what I was doing, and that helped. And so I was like, okay, I got this. And now it's kind of funny because I've opened, and now I'm trying to figure out how to teach a live class and how to teach Zoom simultaneously.
Which is difficult.
Oh my God, it's one of the most challenging things ever.
Why do I think you'll overcome it?
Because sorry. Sorry.
Dominique, what worked, what didn't?
Well, my Facebook Live office hours failed miserably. I had not one kid show up, but that is not surprising because kids aren't on Facebook. The parents are. And so I generally found that my other tech efforts really helped. The blogging helped enormously, so much so that I am now getting lots of inquiries from clients, potential clients from across the country and across the globe, because they've put in online essay coach and they've told me I come up, which is great. So my planned kind of to get more international clients also worked just through improving my SEO. But the other thing that really worked was connecting with other organizations and building those relationships, because so I happened to relocate like many people in the city. I moved out to Long Island and intending to be here for at least part of the year. And so I've now developed relationships with a dozen new libraries, and I've given over 20 webinars out here since January of 2021. So that's great. And I also did a little bit of the connecting with organizations abroad, in that I gave a podcast interview, or I was featured on this podcast and gave a free webinar for American Citizens Abroad, which is an organization that helps Americans who live abroad with taxes. And it was, you know, it was the sort of thing where I just happened to mention that webinar in my monthly newsletter, and somebody who's known me since 1993 and is on my newsletter list and who works for the State Department said, "Oh, wow, I know ACA," and became a client because of that. So you just never kind of know when something is gonna actually get somebody to convert into a client. And I just kind of felt like all of those things had to be done. And the result was that my business didn't increase 20% in 2020. It increased over 100% in gross receipts in 2020. So I had my best year ever in business by far, and my best single July, August, September, and October ever. So
I'm hearing so far from so many of you the importance of networking,
yeah.
working with other people. You're not, again, using that concept, helping is the new selling. And by networking, you end up with getting clients, getting people, getting more business than you had before. That's great to hear. Misty, what worked and what didn't for you?
Sure. I'll start with the networking. One thing I did was I connected with SCORE and found a mentor, and that has been invaluable.
I like that one. That's a very good one.
And these panels, actually, if I wasn't a panelist today, I would probably be watching it. So things like this have been really helpful and interesting. A couple things that didn't work. The new variety did not work. We got great customer feedback. People loved it. It was a unique product. It was too expensive.
Tell us what it was.
Sure, it was an everything pretzel. So if you think of an everything bagel, we actually took all of the components of that and we baked it in the dough, and it was great. People loved it. There's no other pretzel out there like that we could find, and it was really breakable, so it didn't ship well, and it was just very expensive to produce. So despite the customer feedback that we got, we had to discontinue that. So that was disappointing. My grand plan of increasing corporate holiday gifts fell flat. No one was in the offices, no one was shipping, no one was having parties. In fact, one customer that I've worked with for about 12 years, he usually does a large order every year to all of his tenants, and I never heard from him. I reached out a couple of times, and finally I I called him and then he emailed me back and said, people aren't going to be sharing food. So I'm not going to be able to work with you this year. People aren't using, we have bigger bags. He said, it's just not going to happen. So that was just an example of why the corporate gift structure just wasn't going to work this year. We did, like so many, exceed sales projections largely through our website. The social media stuff has started to take off. I'm listening to Dominique talking about blogging and SEO and realize I need to face it and just do it. It is not something I enjoy. I don't like Instagram I'm not on it personally, so that's hard for business, obviously. But with social media, everything is driven by data and analytics. So it has been helpful to kind of sit in front of my computer and really analyze the data and how it's translating into real sales. And it's an iterative process. So I'm constantly doing something, letting it play out for a few weeks, and then evaluating it. So that has actually worked out quite well. And building that customer service and loyalty, through phone calls, through follow-up, that has worked. And I think I mentioned finding a mentor and just connecting with resources and friends that I know are in different industries that I can talk to about what's happening.
Again, networking, same type of thing. I'm curious, you go through the Google Analytics, and are you able to determine your visitors, what pages they spend time on, what product?
Yes.
And how do you use that information?
I don't. I just file it away and pretend. I did it. I looked. Now I can move on. There's lots of free resources out there that you can add the code onto your website, like Google Analytics, but there's lots of other services. And there's like heat maps where you can see where people are scrolling and clicking. And then there's you can watch the video of them moving through the website, and then you can see when they drop off. So it helps me inform decisions I make. So for example, I had this idea to redo my website completely. And actually in meeting with a SCORE mentor and looking at these types of things like the heat maps, the videos of how people are using the site, we decided that the website wasn't a priority at this time because it was functioning the way it should. And that maybe there was other data like organic search results where we should focus our time and where I should really budget my money.
Being able to narrow down, because much as we'd like to think we can't do everything. There's only so many hours in a day. There's only so many days in a week. So,
although I'm sure everyone on this panel has tried.
You're probably right, but being able to narrow it down helps you mentally as well as business-wise. Now, Stacy, sorry, go back to the question, what worked and what didn't?
Oh, so group tours virtually work. FIT tours where individuals and small groups come do not work. And also what I learned was that just targeting the general public for my virtual experiences didn't work, but targeting private corporations, nonprofits, educational organizations that are looking to have content for their staff or for their clients absolutely works. And so that has become my focus. Actually, shipping, when you come to shipping, I'm a novice at shipping, Misty, you're old hand, but when it's shipping, it's its own world, let me tell you. So Like one thing that we did is like kind of like a mess up. We were shipping like different cocktail kits, and we were like, let's put in these fresh ingredients. They'll last across. And the client was like, this is goofy. And I was like, oh, you need a new cocktail to send. So you learn like the stupidity of stuff like that, that should be obvious, but it's actually not obvious. And that's why I always say the way you learn your product is by selling, because there you can plan all you want, but at some point it's just the selling and actually making mistakes if you're going to really figure out how to properly present your product to your clients. And we figured out that stuff, but yeah, there were some mistakes in the beginning.
Can you describe what the cocktail team building?
Yeah, sure. So we have thematic, just like our tours are thematic. So we have a New York speakeasy collection where you get these historic New York drinks like the Mary Pickford, Bee's Knees, old fashioned. These are historic New York drinks. And so we'll send you all the ingredients and we customize it to the group. We also do stuff, we have a Latino, we call it the Latino flavor collection. We have another that's based on drinks that were either influenced by women or made by women, a women's liberation collection. So just all these different thematic drinks that you can enjoy with your team. So it's a lot of fun, like people love it, but it's like silly stuff. Like the little details is what gets you with shipping. And the costs are extraordinary as well. Actually, so you better put some margin in there. The costs of shipping are, whoo. So
there's no doubt when you start something new, you're going to make a mistake. It would be impossible not to, but the beauty is learning from it. But the whole idea is by coming up with this New York theme, you also help a corporation who has employees scattered all over the place to feel part of the organization.
Yeah.
So how has that worked out?
Great, they need this. It turns out that what we're offering is exactly what they need. In light of George Floyd, people need diversity and inclusion experiences. We provide them now that the city is opened, virtually and in person. Just this morning, I was leading a slavery tour virtually, and then my team was doing it in person in the street. And then they need to have creative things to do for team building because some people are not coming back to the office. The model there's been a shift in the corporate world. So what do you do when you have people all over the globe, all over the country? How do you keep the team unified? That's where we step in. So that's why this is a side of the business that's not going to go away.
I agree with you. We have a few more questions to go over, but Kendra, are there any questions in the audience at this point?
We don't have any questions at this time.
Okay, so we'll go on and we'll see. All right. My next question is, where are you now? In a sense, have your ambition, have your goals changed? Are you creating new ones? 2021 is here, halfway through. I know we don't call them New Year's resolutions, but we call New World resolutions at this point. So where are we now? Okay, let's start with Jill.
Where are we now? So like I said, I relinquished the building thing. And so now I had my first yoga class on Monday and it sold out. So it was amazing to me. It sold out in the numbers didn't get lower on the Zoom. So it's all balancing out. And now I'm like, so just as a 5-year plan. So now I'm thinking, what am I going to do? So now I am negotiating to get a house in Connecticut to have an urban asanas retreat center. So we're in the midst of doing that. So I'm just trying to get everything in line as I just start to regulate what's going on here in Brooklyn and Crown Heights. And I feel really good about it. I have myself, I still have my assistant, I have 2 teachers. I will open the wellness studio in September. So we have a couple of more practitioners coming in to offer some wellness to the community. And everything is really like an upswing. And I'm just really humbled and grateful and blessed. Everything, I mean, I don't want to say it's perfect because I don't believe in perfection, but it's pretty close to that. And I cannot complain.
Jill, you're opening up the yoga studio, you're opening up the wellness studio. Do you plan on continuing teaching virtually?
Yes, because the thing for me, so I'm not crying today. I'm not doing that. But for me, it's really just where we are. I mean, I know we're kind of post-COVID, but the fact that I've had people who I hadn't seen in years to be able to have accessibility to do yoga, I have to. I can never not do Zoom. I mean, it's my new thing. I'm going to embrace it, and it's just what it is. I'm going to have to, or at least have a way that I'm recording so they will have accessibility to me. But the Zoom thing, video, COVID gave me that, and I'm going to run with it.
Before COVID, your clientele was strictly limited to probably Brooklyn.
And in person, you had to get me, you had to be in person. Not unless you hired me to do a private to get to you. But everything has been in person, and it's just brought like so many opportunities to me. So it's a blessing in disguise. So it's a good thing.
Great. Dominique, what about you in terms of future goals?
Well, I'm already seeing a shift, right? Because for a full year, online worked great for me, right? But as I continue to get some long distance clients, like I just got one in Los Angeles, I did just lose one in Massachusetts who said that her daughter wanted to work with an in-person college counselor. So for me, my goals are pretty much the same. I think I need to continue to reach out to organizations near me so that if and when people want tutoring for their children that's in person, I will kind of be out there in the front of their minds. Oh yeah, I just saw that person at my local library. I can call her up. And at the same time, my international client base, they're obviously happy to work online with me. And that I think will continue. And I just need to keep on the blogging and keep on, hopefully at some point over the summer, I'd like to redouble my efforts to reach out to various international organizations like American clubs, Harvard clubs, so that I can start delivering webinars there and introduce myself to their audiences.
What are some of the topics that you spoke at the libraries or offering the libraries?
So I speak a lot about the college application process and what kids can do, for example, when they're in 9th and 10th grade. How does it look? What should your 11th graders be doing? But then also, because I was a teacher for so many years, I have talks on study skills and note taking, things that really aren't covered today, as well as, one of the new ones I developed during COVID was how to succeed as a digital learner, because I think that was something like for kids who are already floundering with organization pre-COVID, it was, staying organized during distance learning was a nightmare for those kids. And so, I tried to address their needs as well.
That is something that libraries can really offer their readers, their members, that they wouldn't have otherwise. So that's a great asset. Stacy, how about you? Have your goals changed? Have your ambitions for the company changed? What are they?
Long-term, no, but short-term, yes, because the reality is that my industry was eviscerated by COVID. I mean, the borders are still closed. I mean, let's be real. I mean, my historical business is dependent on when the borders open, Luckily, there are some groups who are coming back, like, Latin Americans are coming back. I hear that Biden is talking to Boris Johnson about opening up, the border between the US and the UK. But I do know that the historical business will return. And when it returns, it's probably going to return at a bigger level because people are so starved for travel. But I would say, yeah, my goals have changed. My goals have now become to grow the virtual side of the business as I wait for the historical business to slowly open up and to slowly come back. And then as tourism stabilizes, to continue in my plans to expand.
I think that you're absolutely right, that when the borders open, when sufficient people are vaccinated, the United States will see a tremendous growth of European and Latin America, and even eventually from Asia business.
Yeah, absolutely.
And they're going to be starving for experiences to see the US. So I think that it's a good normal goal to go. Misty, how about you? Have you gone back to any of the goals or got new ones for this year?
Yeah, you know, most importantly, we are still in business. We didn't have to stop production, and my dad was healthy throughout, even though he was making deliveries. So when I reflect on, you know, where am I now? It's just, I'm just really thankful that I'm still in business, because a lot of small businesses aren't, and that is very sad. So, you know, the goals haven't really changed. We're still looking to expand where our product is offered. That means now we can start thinking about entering a sales cycle and doing some face-to-face sales, introducing our product, and then setting up the distribution for that. I guess I'm gonna have to start blogging. That's one goal. I think, you know, continuing to really work on the social media and ironing that out. And of course, updating my gift options, thinking about my packaging and, you know, what other options do I need to start thinking about in light of health concerns, or that everyone's dispersed. What are the packaging sizes we can use, and pricing. So those are a few goals that have shifted a little bit, but are relatively the same. And I think just diversifying the business in a way that everyone has touched on already here.
I had an idea for you. I think you should have like Nathan's hot dog contest, a pretzel eating contest. Who can devour the most pretzels in an hour, or 15 minutes, whatever.
I would win, so I have an unfair advantage. I've had years of practice. But yeah, things like that. Fun little activities and giveaways, right?
Exactly. I think that anything that breeds attention is great. Okay, just a couple more. Much as we would like it otherwise, we're going to continue to live in uncertain times. Is there anything that you plan to do different in the future as a result of what may happen in the future, uncertain times being? Stacy?
Oh, certainly. Well, this is why I want to spin off Inside Out Tours virtual experiences, because I never want this to happen to me. I feel like if you manage to survive something as crazy as COVID, you better have a plan B. And I just didn't foresee something like this ever happening. So I want to make sure that next time some disaster breaks out, I have a full suite of virtual experiences, classes, expert talks. I could say, okay, guys, now we're going to shift to, you know, this mode, instead of being caught like I was caught out there, looking crazy, trying to figure out how to survive. That's a no. So that's my plan, is to make sure I have a backup, and it's a robust, diversified section of my business, that my business is well diversified.
I like your use of the term plan B.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a big fan of some of the cooking shows, and I see some people halfway through a contest who mess up totally, or something gets burnt, or something gets, oven doesn't go on, and they say, okay, I got to go to plan B. Mm-hmm. And I think that's great.
And the reality is the world is unstable in many ways, and we can anticipate, not to be a Debbie Downer, something else might happen. So the question is, what do you do next time? And I want to have an answer for that when next time comes along.
Dominique, do you have a plan B?
I mean, I think my plan B is, I'm a pretty, I'm very optimistic that things will always work out, but I've always had plan Bs. So my biggest plan B for me has always, as a single woman, has always been to always have a cash reserve on hand. I love Susie Orman. And, you know, listening to her and having that 6 to 9 months reserve in cash that's separate from, you know, your retirement savings. I mean, that really helped, right? Because March, April, May, and June, I made like no money. And so that was super helpful. And as a yoga teacher like Jill, I believe that change is just inevitable part of life, right? And to try to plan for the worst and hope for the best has kind of always been one of my mottos, and I think it's served me pretty well.
I think that's great advice. Jill, what about you?
You know my philosophy. I don't have a plan B because plan A is working. I don't like, my whole thing is I met my husband in 2 weeks and we got married, and we've been married for 25 years. I go with my intuition. I go with my gut. This car is going to roll. The train is on the tracks and it's going to keep going. I have no doubt about it, because I don't need, when it's all said and done, I don't need a brick and mortar. I mean, I have a backyard. I can teach yoga in my backyard. I can teach yoga in my house. I mean, I have a gift. And I mean, and nothing's going to stop me from giving my gift to the world. So it can be urban asanas where I'm paying rent, or it could be my house, or it could be wherever. So I can pick up and pack up and take this show on the road whenever I need to.
That's your plan B and A and C. Misty,
Yeah.
how about you?
Plan B. No, I guess continuing to think about partnerships and expanding who we work with, both in terms of grocery stores, but also customers, continuing to develop relationships. And I think we all kind of mentioned just thinking about the financial risks that we take. I'm very glad that I did not buy a building in Philadelphia to potentially open up a storefront in early 2020. That was fortunate. So just thinking about one of the things that I learned watching, talking to a lot of people in business, is how many small businesses live on the margins, and how, you know, people maybe only had 1 or 2 months of money to survive. And it's tough. I know that that's the structure of some businesses and you have to operate like that. But it also means you can't really withstand shocks that are going to last 15 or 16 months. And so seeing that and having a lot of friends that went out of business made me think a lot about the financial exposure to risk that I take. I'm not sure. So that's one thing I'll be thinking about a lot, is where to put my money smart, but not overextend myself. And just really continue to work on developing distributorships and more retail outlets.
I hope the audience is as impressed as I am with what the panelists have had to say. So I have one last question for them, and then we'll open it up to the audience questions. Each of you overcame what would be to some others impossible odds. What keeps you going? Jill, you've already stated it, but it can't be said enough. So go ahead. What keeps you going?
Oh, I can feel it coming in my heart. Because I love what I do. And every morning I wake up and I open my eyes and I give thanks. And when I teach and when I look in, whether in person or look through the camera and see that, when I see someone and like their eyes are watering and I can tell that I touch them and I'm affecting them, that is what gives me motivation to keep doing what I'm doing. It's just, I'm so humbled. And so I love what I do. I love I love what I do. That's what keeps me going. Oh, and I have 3 daughters, and that's what also keeps me keeps me moving.
I think that you said something there that is really important. Love what you do. Because the saying is, if you love what you do, you'll never work a day in your life. It's
Yeah.
not work.
I agree.
So that's great. What keeps you going, Dominique?
Well, I joked to you when we rehearsed this that having to pay a mortgage all on my own is definitely keeps me going. And I also, being Italian American, food is very important to me. So I like to eat too. So that I like to eat well. But like Jill, you know, I also love what I do, right? And I also, I mean, have spent half a career being a classroom teacher. And while I love the act of teaching, I'm so much happier teaching one-on-one and being my own business owner. And so knowing that, you know, I could tomorrow go and apply for a job as a school teacher and probably get one, but would I be happy? Not as happy as I am right now. So that kind of knowing that I'd be exhausted, tired, you know, maybe sad, depressed, whatever, by doing that is also what keeps me going now, and being able to help the kids and the families, and knowing that, you know, when I get a text, hey, Dr. P, I got into Boston University. Thanks so much for your help. You know, that kind of thing keeps me going as well.
Makes sense to me. Stacy, what keeps you going?
Yeah, I mean, this is like the ladies are saying, this is my calling. Like, there are stories about New York, and I'm dying to tell them. And I believe I'm telling them through my business. I'm going to eventually tell them through writing as well. And so at the end of the day, I actually think it is the meaning of what I do that keeps me going. I have definitely been tempted, because I do have the legal background, to go back into law, because I could easily do that. But every time I think about it, I start thinking about the joy I get from what I do. And I'm like, okay, I'm gonna try some more. You know, that's the drive. It's the love of what I do, and the function that I serve in my community. I can't let go of that.
Makes sense. Misty, what keeps you going?
As everyone else has said, the need to pay my bills, one. And 2, everyone has talked about how much time and effort they have put into building their business. And it is really hard to imagine walking away from that. So you really want to see it through. You want to overcome the challenges. I think being able to say that you did overcome a challenge is very gratifying. And to be honest, some days what got me through was just turning everything off and saying, I have these 3 tasks that cannot wait. I will do these 3 tasks, and then I need to just step away. Like, today is not the day. So that got me through as well. Just not pushing myself on days when I really felt like it might blow up in my face. You know, do I really want to talk to an angry customer today? Probably not a good day to do that. You know, things like that. So just knowing when I need to give myself a little bit of slack, and doing so.
What I'm hearing from all of you is, number one, love what you do. And that the line about, if you love what you do, it's not work, it's pure pleasure. Secondly, I'm hearing pride in that your customers appreciate what you do. And that makes a huge difference. When somebody says, thank you, you did a great job, I really appreciate it, I learned, I grew from what you provided. Your product was great. It makes you feel good. So all 4 of you deserve a lot of credit for representing the best of American business. Thank you all very, very much. Kendra, question?
I want to start with just a comment that came in. Interesting how Dominique and Jill operate as more sole owners, mostly able to work independent. And yet both Misty and Stacy have learned to navigate the new corporate models and remote employees and safety health issues. We can all learn to have a good support system and where to invest. Thanks, ladies. That's a comment. And we have a question for Stacy. Now, we're told in business that we need to distinguish our product or service from our competitors. What would you say distinguishes your company from your competitors?
Oh, so yeah, we had to learn to operate within our niche, which is the fact that we do diversity and inclusion experiences. If I tried to go up against like, huge store companies, I would fail because they have endless amounts of resources and they're backed by hedge funds and things like that. But they don't have our stories. They don't necessarily have the connections in the community. So the way I do tourism is really grassroots. It's from the bottom up. It's telling those authentic stories. It's doing the research, because I have also a background as an adjunct history professor. So, getting deep in and figuring out who are these amazing people that no one knows about. A huge company cannot do that. Or maybe they can, but they don't care to, even if they could. So find your niche and become that specialist.
Thank you. Dominique?
Let me just make a comment on that. As a SCORE mentor, I get people coming to me all the time wanting to start or grow their business. And the first thing I ask them is, in your business, there are other people who do it. What makes you different? What makes you stand out? What makes you're the new guy on the block? Why should somebody come to you versus the person who's been established a long time? As Stacy said, you really have to have a niche, something that distinguishes you. And it was said very well, Stacy. Great. Sorry, just a comment as the SCORE mentor.
Thanks, Sue. We have a question for Dominique. Knowing what you know now, what would you have told yourself when you started the company?
I definitely would have given myself a pep talk, because I think I was very afraid, as somebody I come from a family of civil servants. My dad was a New York City police officer. My mom became a teacher later in life. And the idea of owning your own business, not having a pension to retire to, was is still anathema to the people I grew up with. And I think breaking away from that was difficult in many ways. So I would have said to myself, you know what? You can do this. You're able to actually do this. And I think I would have also recommended to myself, don't be so hesitant to change when you're in the moment. So for instance, pricing earlier in my business was really difficult to figure out. And for a little while I was charging too much and wondering why I wasn't getting any business. And I didn't figure that out until waiting several months without much income coming in. And so I think being more amenable to change is something that I would have told my 2014 self.
Thanks. This is a question for Jill. How should you ask for help? What do you advise?
Well, how do I ask for help? Well, I was a person who, before all of this went down, I have it, I can do it, it's my way, I got it, I can handle it. And it was very humbling for me to receive help. I mean, and that made the complete difference in my whole business. The fact that it's okay to ask for help. It's okay to ask for help. And I got help, and it made the biggest difference of my whole business.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Misty, what do you do if somebody doesn't pay or goes out of business?
Well, I know Stacy talked about this earlier. I think as a small business, and I'd be curious to hear what other people would say, you don't always have the leverage to set terms, right? And that can be challenging, right? So like a lot of businesses want 30 days to pay their bill. So we did actually have two people who owed us money. One, we actually took to small claims court. And as soon as we filed notice, they paid. So that worked. And one just went out of business and we had to just take the loss. I think, again, like setting your pricing and eventually establishing your terms. So if you want to give someone 15 or 30 days, maybe consider having their credit card information on hand in case they don't meet terms and you need to charge them later. Of course, you tell them that. Some people actually add a fee if there are late payments, like a 2% fee. So there are lots of ways to kind of think about managing your cash flow. I saw a really good panel a few weeks ago with a gentleman on funding, and he talked a lot about that. I think Kendra, you were on it.
Yes.
Yeah. So that was really helpful. Just it's not fun when people don't pay. As a small business, you probably need that money, and you have to learn ways to work around it.
Great tips. This is a question for each of you. So we'll start with Dominique. Did anyone achieve what they conceived before starting? So we'll start with you, Dominique.
That's a great question. I think my goals were so limited when I started. I didn't really know what I was doing. So in a way, yes, I have achieved it in that, I've always been able to pay my mortgage. I'm still saving for retirement, and I've even managed to go on vacation. And I still eat well. So all, I guess my goals financially have been set. I think in terms of my professional goals, there are some that I still have that I haven't met yet. I think that's more a matter of time that I haven't been able to work on achieving those goals. But I would say in terms of the goals that I've set that I've had time to work on, yes, I think I have. Yeah.
That's excellent. How about you, Jill? Have you achieved what you conceived before starting?
Have I conceived before I start? Yes, everything that I everything that I put out to do, I have done. Maybe not at that specific time that I wanted to get it done, but eventually everything has been done. I mean, like the retreat it wasn't canceled, it was postponed. And now, no, I don't want the building. However, I'm trying to get a house in Connecticut. In the fall, the wellness studio will be open. My family's thriving. So everything that I've put out there and I wrote down and I prayed on and meditated on, I've received.
Oh, that's fabulous. That's
Yep.
fabulous. How about you, Stacy?
I started this company with a friend just hanging out in Brooklyn. We got on a little bus and we were like, oh, isn't this fun? Let's start a tour company. And we wrote a business plan and we just got money and started. I didn't even conceive what it's become. It's become so much more than I even conceived at that time. And it's just expanded. So not only have I achieved what I thought I was going to achieve, I've achieved much more. And I think it's only the beginning, really.
Excellent. How about you, Misty? Did you achieve what you conceived before starting?
Have we lost Misty?
Oh, did we lose Misty?
I don't know.
I'm here. Sorry.
Okay.
Yes, I have achieved lots of goals that I have set myself. I think part of being a small business owner is you're constantly setting new goals to achieve. Like, that's growth. So as I've been in this business for, almost 15 years, the things that I wanted to do my first year was I just wanted to get a functioning website, and that worked. Now my goal is to engage, with bigger national retailers. So the goal has always changed, and I have achieved the things in the past that I had set out to. Some have taken longer than I wished. And for those that I'm still working on, that's fine. I'll get there.
Kudos to all of you. That's excellent. A question again for all that I'd like each of you to answer. And we'll start with Jill. What kind of mental and emotional support did you have and in hindsight relied on and value, which helped you persist and overcome the challenges of the last year?
Well, part of my undercurrent is that I have Lyme disease, which completely just flipped the script for everything else, like putting gasoline on the fire with COVID. So it broke my body down a little bit, so which gave me more time to be at home and go deeper within myself and meditate a little bit more, a lot more, really, and like write my goals down, journaling. And I started to practice, and it's funny, never wanted to do a yoga class personally on camera, to take a class. And I just started doing yoga every day, whether it was a half hour, an hour, or 90 minutes. And I practiced. So, I mean, I practiced and I meditated, and just that was my saving grace. And I also have an amazing community and amazing family. Like I definitely lined up things around me to support me. Absolutely.
That's very inspirational. How about you, Dominique?
I'm very lucky also to have a great family and great friends. So that was awesome. I actually also I didn't practice yoga every day, but I definitely began meditating every day. If nothing else, because I had the time to do that, whereas before I didn't have the time. I also began exercising daily, doing some kind of cardio. That really helped as well. I think if nothing else, it kept my mood up. It elevated my mood naturally. And of course, I would be remiss if I did not say my SCORE mentor. She is amazing. We had started working together, I want to say maybe 3 years before the pandemic. So we had already a really like solid relationship prior to the pandemic. And then it really, in the March through June time, when I heard crickets in my business, I really began to say, should I just pack it in and go back to full-time teaching? And I can remember I was actually on a walk and she said, there's some people that I've been telling that to, but I really think your business is not one of them. I think it's going to pick up. You just have to be a little bit more patient. And then lo and behold, July, my business was off to the races. So she's been really helpful as well.
Excellent. Stacy, how about you? What kind of mental and emotional support did you have? And
definitely support from my family. My partner actually is a videographer and a photographer, and he helped me do, everything. I mean, when this is over, we're gonna go shoot some more stuff. So, my loved ones, my son needing to being able, I have a 7-year-old, like I had to keep positive. I had to have the vision because, I have responsibilities at home. And then my community, whether it's mentors, Sue is a mentor to me, for example, mentors their help, or, frankly, funding sources, finding the right grants, because I knew I was keeping all my staff. So I had to find funding. You can't do it alone. So I definitely agree with all the ladies. You have to build a strong support system. Being an entrepreneur is very lonely. And so having the support of other entrepreneurs, having the support of your friends and family, like that's everything.
I hear a strong theme of SCORE mentors, so I'm very happy to hear that. How about you, Misty?
My dad is a wonderful business partner. He has taught me so much over the years, things that I can't even begin to figure out. He just knows. He's so patient and thoughtful in his approach to business. So, first and foremost, having him just show me and teach me and allow me to make the mistakes that I need to learn the business. Strong family support, friends, talking to people that are struggling like me, you know, just trying to figure it out, having bad days. I box a lot. That has helped. You know, so like physical activity. I think we have yoga, we have, you know, running. It's that has really gotten me through some struggles with that. But yeah, I just think identifying resources through friends that may have an expertise, you know, just say to them, can I buy you coffee? Can I take you to dinner and ask you what, you know, marketing is? Or how did you do this? You're a legal person. Can you help me write up contracts? You know, just trying to really talk to people about their expertise and not being afraid. I think Jill talked about this, not being afraid to ask for help and not being afraid to know what your weaknesses are.
That's wonderful. So a question that I'm going to ask each of you, and we'll start with you, Misty. If you were to choose what was most responsible for your success to date, hard work, luck, or smarts? So Misty.
Yeah, sorry, I'm thinking about that. Hard work, luck, or smarts?
If Misty wants to think, I have my answer
Yeah,
set.
I got it.
Okay.
First, I think someone mentioned this, having a good product. Actually, I think Sue mentioned it. So all of those, but having a genuinely good product that you represent with integrity. Stacy talked about integrity. I think that is the cornerstone of any small business and success. Liking what you sell, believing in what you sell, and backing up your word. If you say you're going to do something, you have to do it. Luck, yeah, I mean, that's part of it. Having a product that fits the bill in a certain way that people are looking for. Hard work. I learned a lot. My dad does not know how to turn on a computer. So I didn't get too much assistance from that, but it was hard work, luck, and what was the other one?
Some smarts.
Well, I mean, if you can teach yourself, you're smart, right? So I don't know. I think all three, none of the above, everything else. I know that's a helpful answer, right? But
Thanks, Misty. How about you, Dominique?
I think a lot of people would assume for me it's smarts because they think, wow, you're a teacher, right? And you went to Harvard, that, you know, your whole brand is connected with that. I do think that's actually the least, right? I think the second thing would be luck. I was lucky that God gave me a good brain. I was lucky to be born into a family that encouraged me. But I think the most important thing was hard work, for sure, because I always said, you know, people would always think, oh, you must be really smart that, you know, you went to Harvard or you could tutor all these things. Yeah, I'm smart, but if I didn't work hard, you know, the brain would just be sitting there, and the brain is not what gets me cold calling 100 libraries all over Nassau and Suffolk counties to get those 10 contracts. You know, I had a friend once who, when I first started doing in-person talks at libraries, said, oh, that's cool. How'd you get that gig? And I was like, I made that gig because I called every library in Westchester County and I made this opportunity happen for me. And so I think the fact that I've been told, and I think this myself, I'm pretty fearless, and I'm like a dog with a bone that if I want something, I'm going to keep at it until it happens, and not railroad people over, but I don't get so discouraged. I'll just get up the next day and I'll say, okay, let me try again. Let me try again. And I think that's key for any small business owner, to just say, let me try again.
Great qualities to have. How about you, Jill? Again, hard work, luck, or smarts? Which one was most responsible for your success, would you say?
Well, hard work for sure. Hard work, absolutely. I don't believe in luck at all. I believe in faith. and it's my divine order. Like smart, yeah, I went to college. Yeah, I'm a year away from my master's degree, but I always say it's not book smarts that got me, it's street smarts. Like I know how to treat people, and that's kind of what motivated me, but definitely busting my butt every day. And when I can rest, I rest, and not giving up, not giving up. So hard work and faith is what got me to this point, and it's going to get me to another point and another point and another point.
Thank you. Stacy, for that same question.
Gotta agree with Jill. It's hard work and faith, because faith is what gives you the strength to see and to imagine a new possibility of a future, especially at a time when everyone is freaking out. to be able to have presence of mind, to be able to see beyond your circumstances, to look around and say, what's working? What can I do? That takes faith. That's faith. And then, of course, as everyone mentioned, you have to have the hard work, the ability to say, I'm going to find and I'm going to grind for this opportunity, and I'm going to make it up out of thin air if I need to. So for me, it's faith and hard work, because I think there's a lot of smart people in this world. There's not a lot of people who are willing to take the risks that you take when you become an entrepreneur, and they are substantial. I'm not saying that, it's for everyone. It certainly is not. But if you decide to go down this path, you got to have faith, because you're going to have times that come when you don't see what to do next, and you need to believe that you can find and achieve what you want.
So inspirational. All of you are so inspirational. So this is the last question we'll have, and I'll ask it again of each of you. And we'll start with you, Stacy. Was there an ultimate desire that fueled your journey that is still part of you now?
I don't know. Don't we all want to change the world in our own modest way? That's what I want to do. I really, truly believe this is my calling. I believe there's stuff that I'm supposed to do on this planet, and that's, my own spiritual perspective. And it's like, you must continue doing this so that you can bring this vision into being. And so that's all I need, because that to me is the purpose of being on this earth, is to be able to contribute something meaningful and in your own modest way, make this world better. So that's enough of a fuel for me. I'm not motivated by money, although I do care about profit. I'm not motivated by money. My motivation is really to do my part, to bring my vision into this world.
To make a difference.
Yeah, make a difference.
How about you, Jill?
Can you repeat it, please?
Sure. Was there an ultimate desire that fueled your journey that is still part of you now?
I mean, it's kind of reiterating everything I've said today. I mean, I'm doing what I love, and it's just like, if you're doing what you love, how can you go wrong? How can it? You know what I mean? What can happen? So I'm doing what I want to do and what I love to do, and I know what I'm doing is changing lives, and I know that's what it is. And I just want to put this in here. I adore my SCORE mentors. Adore. And I had never heard of SCORE. They actually found me, and it has been one of the best relationships that I'm building as we speak.
Thanks for that, Jill. Dominique, was there an ultimate desire that fueled your journey that is still part of you now?
I mean, like Stacy was saying, the first time I stepped foot in a classroom, I was like, oh, this is what I meant to do with the rest of my life, right? I've spent 4 years after graduating college not knowing what I was supposed to do, because I had other classmates who were becoming investment bankers and lawyers. And when, I became just a teacher, it was like the heavens opened up, and it was like, oh, this is what you have to do with your life. And so for me, it's personal fulfillment, but then it's also, now that I work more one-on-one with kids, it's oftentimes being an ally for kids when they sometimes don't even have one in their parents. I mean, I work for some families who are super high achieving, and it's oftentimes, trying to convince the parent, like, such and such school that you think is this brass ring really might not be for your child. And let's try to make sure that they're healthy and whole in their heart when they go into adulthood. So for me, I almost feel like it's a little bit balancing the heart and mind in what I do, to try to, as Stacy and Jill both said, to try to make the world a better place in the way that I can do that.
Thanks. And Misty.
Yeah. When my dad started this business, he was a taxi driver in Philadelphia. So an ultimate desire, something that really drives me, is taking what he started, what he took a risk on, and continuing to build it out of respect for everything that he has done for 30 years. And also, I really just want to run a business with integrity. That everything I do is about transparency, providing a good, solid product, and for people believing in it. So that drives me a lot.
Thanks, Misty. And I'll just say I have had Misty's pretzels, and they are a very good product. So with that, I just want to, everybody mentioned having a SCORE mentor, and it's a great resource. Again, it's free. These are targeted conversations. We get to know you over time. So we develop a deep understanding of your business, your challenges. And we have people who've been with SCORE for 10 years, longer, people who've come with us when they have a business idea and now are thriving. So again, a great resource, score.org. That's where you can sign up for a SCORE mentor. This is the website, the big Find a Mentor button there. Yeah, it's a great resource. It's free. You really have nothing to lose in trying us out. We are sending to your registration email the webinar recording. That will go out on Monday. And then also in that email is a link to access the recordings of all the webinars we've offered thus far, and a link to register for the upcoming webinar on successful pricing strategies, which will be on June 28th, I believe it is. So with that, please take a moment, fill out a webinar survey for us. It lets us know how was this webinar impactful for you, and provides us with really valuable feedback. So stay on after Zoom to complete that survey. And with that, I just want to say thank you to Sue for moderating such a great panel. Thank you to Misty, Jill, Stacy, and Dominique. You guys were wonderful panelists. I know that the audience got so much out of this. So thank you, everyone. Thank you all for attending, and enjoy the rest of your day. Bye, all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Kendra. Thank you, other panelists.